Okay. Good evening, everyone, and good morning. I'm Chitra Khatri, working as a program executive at IDEX DIO. It is my pleasure to welcome you all for the 10th Gurukul session on advancing defense technology trade between India and the US. Gurukul is the educational series under Indus X, draws inspiration from the ancient Indian tradition of fostering education. True to the essence of a Gurukul, this series emphasizes on experiential learning and meaningful discussion with visionaries from India and the US. These semi formal sessions aim to create a vibrant exchange of ideas and insights, engaging startups, students, and innovators. We are honored to host a panel of distinguished experts today. We have Ms. Kerry Arun, Principal Commercial Officer from the US Department of Commerce International Trade Administration, to share the perspective on how US companies can compete in India, how to identify partner companies, and what resources are available about companies that want to partner. We also have Colonel Shailendra Arya, who is a senior advisor from the Asia Group. He will also share the perspective on how to sell in India and how to facilitate successful partnerships. Going further, learning about INDUSX. INDUSX is the India-US Defense Acceleration Ecosystem, which is a strategic initiative designed to strengthen defense innovation and cooperation between India and US. It aimed to accelerate joint research, development, and production of advanced defense technologies by fostering collaboration between governments, industries, startups, and academic institutions. Indusx focus on various technology areas like AI, cybersecurity, aerospace, quantum technologies, and many more. Without further ado, let's begin our today's session, and it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for the day, Colonel Baljinder Singh. He is a veteran of the Indian Defence Forces with over 25 years of his services, a paratrooper and specialist in combat vehicles and parachute systems. At DRDO, he contributed to major Make in India projects. Since March 2022, he has led US defense space and homeland security initiatives at USISPF. Over to you, Colonel Singh.
Thanks, Chitra, and good evening and good morning again. Welcome, Carrie and Kalnaria, to this 10th edition of Gurukul series. So I have been, allotted an easier job of discussing the relevant portions on advancing defense technologies and trade and keeping it time bound. And for the main discussion, we have these two specialists who Chitra just introduced. So here's how it's going to be. We're going to be having a discussion for about 45 minutes and then probably take in question and answers in the end for about 15-20 minutes. And so all the viewers who are wanting answers to the questions, keep posting them on the question Q&A session of the chat box, and the team here will keep assisting. So getting on with it, Kanaria, the overall bilateral trade with India of US is almost reaching about 200 billion. And the defense trade has also enhanced to almost about 22 billion in last 2 decades. Lately, the stream of startups and MSMEs, they have hooked onto the economic cross-border economic linkages and are also wanting to economically develop along with these developments, the technologies that are taking place. What do you think is the role of these startups and the MSMEs that they are playing in enhancing bilateral trade between India and US and development of these technologies as a goal?
Uh, Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Shailendra Arya. I'm a military veteran. Thereafter, I served in the Ministry of Defense as an advisor for 4.5 years. And of late, I'm working as a senior advisor with the Asia Group, focusing on defense and aerospace practice of theirs in India. With my understanding in the current and the previous role, let me give you a little bit of overview before I come on to your specific questions. As you said, our bilateral trade has crossed $20 billion. That is defense trade has crossed about $22 billion in these many years. But most of it has been, I would say, purchases by the Indian side of the larger defense systems such as Apaches, C-17, C-130s, Chinooks, MH-60 Romeo and Harpoon missiles. From the Indian side, the US has picked up aviation components at a much aviation components, some designs, I mean, design work by GCCs or their capability centers here, bulletproof jacket helmets, and some components. So this is largely the trade has been one way, though picking up of bilateral picking up of components by US companies from India has been growing. Um, so this is what it looks like. This is how it has been. When we say this $22 billion, it is mainly big tickets purchase, and some of the smaller startups who are here today have not really got a share in the pie. But we are here to discuss how they can get. So some more deals are in the pipeline. MQ931 MQ9s with General Atomics for a good about $3.5 billion has been concluded, and also a discussion for additional six P8s is in the advanced stages. So we'll see this trade growing. As I said, that this trade in terms of from US is mainly in form of FMS, wherein US has been picking up these particular items from India. Before I move on, I also want to speak a word about how our regulatory framework looks like. I know you will come to it later, but we have just concluded a security of supplies arrangement, which India and US can both prioritize orders in each other's system without it being legally or commercially binding. And we are having a reciprocal defense procurement agreement, which is lined up, which will get discussed. I'll come back to it and how important it is later on today, and how it will give access to the Indian companies in the US system and vice versa. Coming lastly, addressing your specific part is that the role the startups and MSMEs are playing. Presently, few of our startups have linked up with US, especially in space and few other sectors, and are providing them solution. Some of the bigger US companies, defense majors in India, have tied up with with some startups. They are supporting them, and they are procuring certain items and are having some solutions of them. But to be honest, as of now, it's not taken off. And as we discuss later in this Gurukul series today, I'll be sharing some perspective that how it's going to take off. I'll stop here, sir. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Shailendra. I think there are a lot of questions on bilateral trade that will follow. But coming to Kerry, I think Kerry, most of the viewers may not be very well versed with what the commercial services in India are doing. It'll be good to get an overview from you and try to understand as to how your department is assisting in investments in India and commercial activities. If you have some presentation, you can show. Yeah.
Let's see. I hope everybody can see that well.
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Joey, can you see the whole thing? Because I'm not very good at doing this on
All good. We're
this.
seeing the PowerPoint presentation,
Great.
so we're not seeing presentation view at the moment.
Make
All
it to the
right.
full screen now, Kerry.
Yeah, just 1 second. If I click the right thing, we would go well. Why am I not seeing it? Forgive me, guys. I've forgotten how to do this while I am here.
You can quickly click on from the beginning, Kerry.
Yeah, but it's not, yeah, there we go. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So hi, everybody. I'm Kiri Arun. As mentioned, I'm the Principal Commercial Officer with the U.S. Department of Commerce, and I'm stationed in southern India in Chennai. Today, I have the lucky chance of being in Bangalore, but I'm stationed at the U.S. Consulate here. And I am part of the team from the U.S. Department of Commerce here in India, part of the International Trade Administration. And our job is to facilitate trade between India and the United States, where we help American companies export their products and services to the Indian market, really 80 markets around the world, as well as help attract foreign investment to the United States. So for the Indian companies on the line, we'll talk a little bit about how you guys can play here as well. And then general protection of U.S. business interests abroad. And so here in India, this is the largest footprint of the U.S. Department of Commerce out of anywhere in the world. We have 7 offices that are strategically placed across the country to work with American companies as you look to do business here in the market. We also have representation from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the Bureau of Industry and Security, as well as the U.S. Trade and Development Agency. So we have a pretty robust team of staff across country. We are here to help American companies do business in India and help Indian companies set up in the United States. And so the way that we do that as the U.S. Department of Commerce is we provide assistance in both trade and investment. In particular, for the American companies, we actually work kind of in a services capacity where we can help you connect with partners to have an in-country agent, partner, distributor, some sort of relationship representation in market, as well as connect with foreign buyers, both on the commercial side and within the government. We work to resolve issues that might make it difficult for you to do business here. So we work to break down regulatory barriers through our commercial diplomacy assistance. If you are bidding on a foreign government tender, i.e. the government of India has released a competitive tender, or a state government for that matter, we will actually advocate on your behalf. We work to keep market access and the market accessible for companies, protect intellectual property. We have the team from enforcement and compliance on trademark, copy, patent right, as well as dumping and subsidies, as well as safeguarding technology through our Bureau of Industry and Security. And so as the International Trade Administration, we have teams across the United States that are well positioned to work with you and your individual company to help you develop an international plan, as well as develop a strategy specific to any market around the world that you're looking to enter. So in particular, here in India, we have teams in the United States that can work with you to help you create the strategy to come into market. We really do is help you understand what's going on in a particular market and then understand how you can get to that market to do business. Our claim to fame is all of the business matchmaking that we offer, where we can help an American company find partner, agent, distributor to have representation in a foreign market. That is called a gold key that we deliver, but we also do other services like due diligence on foreign partners, as well as some in-country marketing assistance that we call single company promotion. And so through all of this, we help you attract customers in the market for you to then be able to make sales here. Part of that strategy for your sales, especially in this sector, is how we support companies when they are bidding on foreign government tenders. And so if you are going to sell to the Ministry of Defense here, likely that is going to be a government tender, right? And we will actually go in as the U.S. government and advocate on your behalf. And so we have an office in Washington. It's called the Advocacy Center, where you have to apply. Of course, we're the USG. There's a form involved, but where you have to apply for advocacy. We look at the deal that you are going after and evaluate if it makes sense for us to support that as the U.S. mission. And then we help advise you through the process as you are bidding on that work and how we can support you win the deals. So in 2024, across the world, American companies won about $73 billion in government procurement, which created about 300,000 jobs in the United States. And so when it comes down to getting the deals, we are here with you to help you understand how to work in the market. Diving a little more into this, beyond going after the actual customers, what do you need to do in the beginning to understand the market? Our teams in country around the world including India, produce market intelligence that is publicly available and free to you as American companies on our website. And so we actually have a whole guide to doing business in India. So this is the 10th session. I'm sure you've learned a lot over these 10 sessions, but as you're developing your strategy to enter the market, I encourage you to look at this country commercial guide that talks about how to do business in India, as well as the top sectors and segments in those individual sectors here in the market. If you find that you need additional intelligence on the market, you can actually work with us to get additional customized market research to understand a specific area or interest that you have. We also facilitate American companies coming in country through trade missions. So if you've ever gone to a trade show and you see a big US pavilion, it's generally certified by us as the US Department of Commerce. With those trade shows in country or ones in the United States, we also bring buyer delegations from foreign countries to meet with you as companies. And so there's always a lot of good reason for you to actually be positioned in the US pavilion. So that way we can do matchmaking and help you meet with the decision makers and the buyers for your products and services. So like this week, people were at Paris Air. And there's a humongous US pavilion there. We have tons of international delegations coming in where we have arranged matchmaking meetings with those MODs for the companies if they're looking to buy a particular technology or learn more. So it's kind of interesting as the federal government that we facilitate all of this connection for you. We want to help you do business and make it a little bit easier for you to achieve your business goals. And so in addition to the traditional matchmaking through the trade shows, the trade missions, the in-country assistance that we provide, we also will just give you general guidance on how to do business here. And so as you work through your journey and getting to the Indian market, do please engage with us because we're here to help you to make it a little bit easier. Colonel Singh, back to you.
Hey, Carrie, that was exhaustive. I think you really covered the entire mandate. Picking, picking up some words from your presentation here, while you're doing all these things for the US companies who want to venture into India, we would be also keen to know, what kind of an assistance are you giving to the Indian startups and the smaller companies in, understanding the dynamics of also the US market and also any market intelligence that you are sharing of the US side and assisting them settle down and matchmaking there. Carrie, you are muted, Carrie.
Perfect segue, sir. For the Indian companies, we help Indian companies set up presence in the United States. So as the federal government, we are keen to facilitate investment to the US. And so we have a program that's called Select USA. We have worked with a number of companies that have participated in Indus X, even some of the challenge winners to help them set up their US presence. In the US, it is difficult to do business there without a physical presence, just like in India. The US is a very big market. But so through this program, Select USA, which is housed under the US Department of Commerce, we help those foreign companies set up some sort of physical presence in the United States. So that could be a sales office. It could be a warehouse. It could be a manufacturing facility. It could be a sales and the service center. The other side of our client base through Select USA is actually our individual state governments in the United States. We call those economic development organizations. They are the folks that are actually looking to incentivize and entice foreign companies to set up in their individual jurisdiction. And we help connect you with those state governments that can offer you grants, incentives, tax breaks, to help you set up that physical presence. And over the course of the existence of Select USA, around the world, we've facilitated about $250 billion in investment to the United States, which have created more than 230,000 jobs. And so the whole goal of this program is job creation. But what does it do for the Indian companies? It helps you set up a physical presence in the US that is developed through looking at tons of information I will never tell you where to set up in the US, but we have lots of data that we can give you. We have information on basics related to workforce and availability. We have information on supply chain. We have information on where the industry clusters are, which would all feed into the company's decision on where to set up their physical presence. The US market is very, very hard. And so what I want to point out to the folks on the call today is just like we have that country commercial guide to doing business in India, we also have a guide to investing in the US. This is very good because even if you're pre-investment and looking more generally at just sales to start with, there's a lot of information here that will help you understand how you can enter the US market. And so we have this guide. It's 14 chapters of how to invest in the United States, including how you incorporate or register your business, as well as some chapters on immigration, business structure, tax implications in the United States, workforce availability, any restrictions on foreign direct investment. That's really important here in particular for this sector, because if a company that is on the line is thinking about making an acquisition on an American company that might be in the defense space, there might be foreign direct investment restrictions on that would limit what you might be able to do. So we have some information here in the guide about that as well as the Committee on Foreign Investment, that's called CFIUS. A section on intellectual property. We get a lot of Indian companies that decide to set up a physical presence in the United States because they want to safeguard their IP. And we have some of the strongest safe IP restrictions and regulations in the world. There's also information here on banking and how you would set up banking in the US as a foreign company. If you are putting a physical presence in, site selection, a chapter on those incentives, those enticements to help you come and set it up in country. We also have this chapter on federal procurement and how you would register to be a vendor with the federal government. This process is always the hardest for small companies to understand, even big ones that are entering the US market. And so there's quite a lot of information in the guide on how you register with the federal government, how you get the tax ID, all of the things that you need to be in compliance with to be considered to even just put a submission in on a bid. And then we've also have some information on how you partner with our US research organizations. There are some companies coming out of IndusX, Indian companies, that are partnering with our national labs. And so there's some more information here on how you get access to that resource, as well as if you're looking for VC investment or equity and capital, how our market structure works in the United States. So not only do we have that basic guide to setting up in the US, as I mentioned, we have all this information related to industry clusters. We have all these different fact sheets that are published on our website, and there's information state by state. There's information industry by industry. We have quite a bit on aerospace and defense, as well as where FDI is coming from outside into the United States. That's really important because as an Indian company, you would want to know who else are your international competitors besides American companies. And so you can access all of this information directly on our website. I'm happy to talk to anybody too that's on the line that is interested in how they go about setting up a presence in the United States and point you in the right direction, but we'll share these slides that have links to all of this information. The last thing, or two more things I'll mention before I transition it back to you, sir, is as I mentioned, we have also published market intelligence. We also have information related to commercial property and real estate costs, cost of living and cost of doing business across the United States, every one of our states. Demographics related to employment. If you're thinking about some sort of manufacturing facility, information on energy, water would be very important. General operating costs, access to supply chain, infrastructure and logistics, things port, rail, freight forwarders, all that type of information. Tax rates, both at the central government level and the state government level. Information on trade associations. Information on water and wastewater cost, workforce, wages. Literally every piece of data that you would need to make a decision about entering the US as a market, we probably have it. And a lot of it is published on our website. You can get to it directly. You never actually have to come to us. You can just go there and look at it. But we work one-on-one with Indian companies to understand what their plans are for the US market and then help them develop a strategy. So not just a strategy for 6 months, but a long-term growth strategy to set up physical presence in the United States. Because our job is to help you enter the market and do it in a way that's easier. Right? I'm not going to replace the company's own due diligence and research, but we're going to help you get access to information and data to help you make a smart decision on where you might land up for a presence to then help your business be successful there. And then related to that, every year we have an annual investors summit. We always have a strong contingent of Indian companies that go to the investors summit. It happens just outside of Washington, D.C. It's the largest country-sponsored investor summit anywhere in the world. We have programs for companies of all sizes, and we work with companies of all sizes, from very small investments to very large investments, from just the sales office to some sort of large manufacturing presence. It really runs the gamut. And we have a lot of companies looking to come to the US market in the aerospace and defense cluster because they are looking not just to sell to the United States, but more broadly to NATO member nations. And you can do that out of a physical presence in the US. So Colonel Singh, I'll turn it back over to you.
Wow, Carrie, this is really very informative and helpful. I think most of the startups would have either gone through the commercial website, and those who haven't gone probably would find a reason now to go through the ton of data and information lying there. And I, for one, wasn't aware that, although even if you to set up a base in America, there are things that are readily available. You just go through rather than, finding about it. So great. Like Carrie just told, US is a big market. Colonel Arya, I think India is also a big market today. Many companies, small to big companies, are wanting to work in India and are also wanting to benefit from the economic development that is going in India. From your experience in the defense ministry, what do you think is the mantra for the foreign companies? I'm asking from the US companies' point of view to be successfully partnering Indian startups or Indian MSMEs or Indian companies, and so they can collaborate better, and then it's a win-win situation for both the countries and both the startups.
Well, sir, from the perspective of U.S. companies, U.S. startups, U.S. medium-sized companies wanting to invest in India, I'll say the following. First and foremost, look for identify a niche or high demand sector in India. Don't get in where the labor costs are a significant advantage. Are significant. To spread your risk, don't only bet on government procuring it. Also consider a sector or a product which has export potential, which can be exported out of it. Look for an Indian partner which has got a good technical team, and not only a business idea but has done some sales as well, and resolve the ITAR issues with the US government, or have a clarity on what you will be allowed to offer here, or what you can do in India before coming here. So, well, sir, my suggestion is that I have a 2-slide presentation. If I can run it, it will be useful so that some of these questions get covered, and like Carrie did, I could do the same.
Yeah, sure, Shailendra, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Aryan has shared it. Aryan, can you come to the next slide? Next one. Yeah, I'll just quickly cover. No, the first one. I just have 2 slides. The previous one. Yeah. So the perspective from here. So as Colonel Baljinder said, our bilateral trade is touching about 22 now. It's growing. I've listed out 2 deals which are on the way, and it's also offering some. Both of them, one is done, one is in the pipeline. Both of them has some potential for both Indian and US startups, because the MRO for the MQ9s will come up in India some of the Boeing MRO work will also take place in India. And there are certain components which will get assembled for MQ-9 in India. So that's one opportunity. As I said, procurement by India from US is mainly through the G2G or what they call FMS route. It's mainly in big ticket items. There are not many small ticket items. But as far as the US is concerned, it is picking up number of aerospace components. Here there are again big companies like joint ventures of a lot of US defense majors here, but they are also picking up smaller items such as bulletproof jackets, helmet, night vision devices, some softwares, design works, etc. I wanted to highlight two regulatory aspects. One is that in August last year, India and US have concluded security of supplies arrangement. That means India and US can ask each other to prioritize their orders. So that builds up supply chain resilience. It builds up some confidence in both the systems that, look, if there is an order, we can ask through the government to prioritize it. Next important thing which is coming up, which President Trump and Prime Minister Modi both agreed when Prime Minister visited US in Feb this year. They said we'll start negotiations for the reciprocal defense agreement. Now, if as and when the RDP is done, that will make Indian companies eligible for bidding for US DoD tenders. And it will also provide a level playing field for both sides. Um, it will also make easier access in Indian system for the US companies. So it is a level playing field. Both sides will navigate around Make in India, Make in America, Jones Act, Stratton Act, our defense acquisition policies to make it easy for both sides to, have both sides to say access each other tenders and supply. From the Indian side, it appears to us that materials and components would be easier. Indian in defense industry is not at that stage wherein you could look at supplying systems to US, but components, steel, alloys, steel, subcomponents, etc., would be easy, and it will also lead to increased visibility and acceptance of Indian and US companies in each other's systems. There are some barriers which I must point out. Some of them Carrie also highlighted. First and foremost is there's lack of visibility on India in the US ecosystem. US is a big market. It's the largest defense market. Pentagon has a $850 billion and plus defense budget. Comparatively, India's defense budget is just 78 billion, and a lot of it goes into revenue procurement. That means we are just paying, salaries and maintenance and etc. From it, approximately only 20 billion is earmarked for capital procurement, that is outright purchases. Second, the ITAR clearances does take time because of various regulatory issues. India is a major defense partner from the Department of Commerce. We have the Strategic Trade One authorization that makes it easier at certain places, but ITAR clearances have to be sought. They do come, but they have to be sought. More on it later if there is a Q&A on it. And in both sides, there's a huge bureaucracy. I was part of it in the sense that there is a huge system on both sides being democracy, so that takes time. Your question, sir, what should be the partnership criteria for US companies? Identify a high niche or demand sector in India, which has got export potential so that some risk is mitigated if the government orders don't come through. Look for a good team in India, both from a technical and business side, and possibly not only idea, they could have done some sales. As far as the Indian companies which are looking to partner in US, India is a difficult market. So the companies which you are, the companies which you're partnering with, kind of make it clear to them that it requires a lot of patience in India. It does take a lot of time to get through. The US partner of yours should have strategic patience, a long-term commitment, but because it does take some time in India. And the company should have some ability to bring tech and possibly funds. Tech is more important with due clearances, where you can form a JV and then access the Indian markets. Because if there is a JV, it's relatively easier to access the Indian market. I'll come to it later. I think you may be asking a question about it. I'll cover the export clearances little later. What is the procedure? Comment and general guidelines for the startup. But very briefly, in India, the export clearances are given by three set of people. About 85% of export clearances are given by DGFT, Director General of Foreign Trade. The sum of it, which is defense specific, is given by the Ministry of Defense. They come under the SCOMET 6 list, and very few export clearances which are given by the Department of Atomic Energy. So just to recall, in India, export clearances are given at three places. Majority of them by DGFT, Director General of Foreign Trade, which is housed in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and some which are defense specific in the in the MOD, and there's a website for it. And some of them which may have nuclear use by the Department of Atomic Energy, which I don't think so any of it is going. So this is the approximate procedure for the export clearances in India, and how the Ministry of Defense is planning to simplify it and how they're working on it. I'll come to it later. Can I just show my last slide? Arun? So before I'll give it back to the give the control back to the moderator. In my understanding, the opportunities for startup I've divided into sectoral focus and some startups. First and foremost, sectoral focus is drones and counter drone systems. In particular, the recent escalation with Pakistan, it has put the focus back on drone and counter drone system. In that, apart from drones, there are, early warning systems, radars, EM jamming, lasers, directed energy, etc., which India is looking at. The radars for counter drone system. In this recent escalations, a lot of the drones which came in were plastic or carbon or silicon composite. They didn't have good. They didn't show up very well on the radar screens, both on S-band and X-band radar, S and X, and therefore, there is a potential to make radars, make counter US systems, which can pick up items which are aerial objects which are slow moving, which can pick up aerial objects which have a lot of carbon composites or silicon composites, and which can pick up basically US with small radar cross section. So this is in my understanding, this is a big sector, because India is going to, and some of you would have got the idea from the emergency procurement direction, which is taking place, that this is an area in which the Indian military is heading to. Underwater domain awareness is another sector in which India and US is working together, and smaller companies can make mobile static sensors, sonobuoys, UUVs, especially the smaller UUVs, etc. Space is another exciting sector, where some of the Indian space startups have done tie-up across directly in the US systems, and even Indian space policy in terms of FDI is very relaxed. There is 100%, 74%, and 49% FDI, but majority of the sector is in 74% plus FDI. So it makes it very easy under the Space Policy 2023 to do FDI in India in the space sector. Some of the areas I think where there is significant potential is synthetic aperture radar, space-based RF detection, all-weather imaging, either full systems or parts of the reusable space launch vehicles, especially in the mid-lift segment of which there is maximum demand. Aero engines, a huge aero engine remains a priority for India. Indian government is moving on 2-3 tracks to make aero engines in India. One is the manufacturing license agreement with GE. Second is a potential discussion with the International Engine House to co-develop 110 to 120 kilonewton aero engine in India. And third is possibly a track wherein one of the Indian big defense major will tie up with some foreign companies to develop aero engine in India. You heard Baba Kalyani few days back again pitching for it. So this is another sector where there is focus. I know the startups and the small MSMEs cannot make aero engines as such, but it's got engine has got thousands and thousands of parts, and that presents opportunities. AI is another sector, and to be honest on this, the visibility, the focus in India in particular has been less. We don't have a Palantir in India or Enduril, which is working in this sector. So I think some of you who are thinking long term, this would be a very good idea. Some of these ideas, some of the AI ideas are in times to come, Indian government will move to substitute some kind of manpower by technology on the border areas, and therefore assessment, AI-based assessment of the border surveillance, whether it's a human being or a terrorist which is trying to cross, or it's an animal which is disturbing the fence, AI can detect that. AI analysis of underwater domain awareness inputs, AI assessment of satellite pictures that look, the last pass showed this, and this pass is showing this. So there may be a helipad which is coming up here, or there may be a launch pad which is coming up here. Humans, I often miss it. AI can do that. And lastly, the AI integration in a lot of sectors. Munition is a priority area between India and US. In the roadmap, which we released in 2023, it's available on the US DoD website. Munitions, especially the precision strike, seekers, etc., remains a priority. You are aware of some of the joint work which is going on in the sector. And lastly, another big gap which we have in India is gas turbines. Gas turbines, India is not making. GE has Element 2500. Rolls-Royce also has some gas turbines. A lot of work is going on in gas turbines here. Effort at making some of it in India. It presents opportunities both for US and Indian smaller companies and startups. Some of my suggestions are that some of the startups can look at being the tier one vendors for various UDA types. It's known what are the UDA types which have recently taken place between Enduril, L3 Harris, Thea Mahan, Liquid Robotics with the Indian companies. Liquid Robotics has tied up with Sagar Defense, etc. So there's a lot of possibility to be a part of this. There are more co-production opportunities coming up between India and US. There would be likely Striker infantry combat vehicle and Javelin ATGM, which will get co-produced in India. It remains one of the priority areas. So again, it'll lead to a number of production opportunities for components and subcomponents in India. The manufacturing license agreement of G414 has been signed. The negotiations are now going on, but soon, hopefully, it should get concluded. So that means both HAL and GE are looking for a lot of people to make, significant components out of that. Lastly, second last, I covered space sector, especially ISR, communications, satellite, component, software, and some of it I covered before, and specialized components such as seekers, avionics, gas turbine component. So these are some of these thoughts which are applicable for both sides, for India and US. And I've tried to put from the sectors, India and US are working together, and there is some consensus in the government. These are all priority areas in the roadmap which we had identified in 2023, and it will get a lot of government support. The Ministry of Defense and Department of Defense are keen to move ahead in these areas. So, sir, thank you. I'll stop here, but I thought I'll just focus everybody with these two slides of mine. Thank you.
Well, Shailendra, you've almost covered everything that's happening in the Ministry of Defense domain, lately. And of course, the fantastic slide on opportunities for the new startups and MSMEs and the companies who are wanting to venture in the domain of defense and aerospace. But I'm keeping my eyes on the time also. But I'll take two. I want to ask two more queries, which just struck me when I was going through your presentation. You talked about the regulatory framework, and that is definitely an impediment in efficient collaboration between both the countries in technology transfers and working on these innovative defense technology. What is your view that how both the countries are wanting to address the ITARs and the export controls and this COMET and the licenses, because even the licenses are is a long drawn procedure. So I'll ask Carrie to take on the export control question, and I'll ask Shailendra to speak more how to handle these licenses for all those companies that are manufacturing in India and exporting back to US or abroad, SCOMET, OGL licenses. So over to you, Carrie, first.
Thanks. So, Colonel Arya mentioned that India in 2018 became STA, Strategic Trade Authorization Category 1. That was a big milestone for us. There is more to be done on export controls and collaboration. And so there's a lot bilaterally that is happening all of the time, including the Strategic Trade Dialogue that has most recently gone into place, where both countries are looking at the export controls. Nonetheless, for companies on both sides, I encourage you to be well versed at high level on the export controls for both regimes for both countries. In the US, we have ITAR, which is managed by the US Department of State, usually for dual use articles, so most of the things in the defense sector. But then we also have the Bureau of Industry and Security Export Administration Regulation. They refer to that as EAR. As we can, the US government looks to liberalize things that maybe were previously ITAR controlled and move them over to the EAR classification system. Both have processes to get licenses. Generally, things that are under the commercial side under EAR, the licenses generally come through faster than they do on ITAR. On both the US Department of State's website as well as on our website, we have information about both of these processes. So both for the American companies, but for the Indian companies, I really encourage you to take a look at all of the training that is available. There's lots of free training on the websites, and I'll make sure to get Joey a link so you guys can get to it directly on the ITAR process. And the ITAR training is actually available. It's for the American companies, but as an Indian company, I think it's really important that you understand what our internal process is. So that way, when you have questions, you have a basic understanding of how it's going to work. Because we get a lot of complaints from Indian companies that they don't hear about the license or they don't know what the update is. But the reality is the American company might not also have the information. But I have seen more licenses come through in the time that I've been here. And so I see that it's liberalizing. And so my recommendation is, as we continue to develop the relationship, that companies take it upon themselves to understand what the licensing requirements are on both sides, because that'll help you understand your ability to do business and the timeframes that you're going to be able to do business in.
Gary, I will just interject here. All this is fine, I think. But I just wanted to understand: is there a willing initiative from America to kind of simplify these ITARs and the regulations, and being STA1 India, to shift it to a little more acceptable, maybe into EARs or something with more amenable form of export controls or ITARs, so that it is easy for India to get technology transfer? Is there a process that is being followed there now, or thought
So, I
process?
mean, there is the strategic trade dialogue where bilaterally it's being looked at and those conversations are happening. But from ITAR to EAR, it's not necessarily country specific, right? We're looking more what things are more commercial. And so most recently, in particular in the space sector, there were 3 categories of things under the ITAR that were moved related to rocket and rocketry components. And they were put over onto the EAR, which made them more widely accessible for multiple nations. India was one of those nations. And so this is not US India process per se, but more broadly as we look to facilitate trade. And India is a beneficiary of that. And so in the time that I've been here, I've seen licenses come through much faster than they had been previously. So I see that it's progressing even day to day. But yes, they're bilaterally, these are discussions that are being had.
Thank you, Carrie. That's very informative. And Sharinder, very quickly, if you can just tell about the licenses, how can we ease the procedure of giving these licenses to people who are manufacturing?
So, sir, firstly, I'll echo what Carrie just said that ITAR clearances are coming through. It is very encouraging, and both the countries have created a mechanism, strategic trade dialogue, which is chaired by the Foreign Secretary from Indian side and from Department of Commerce as well as Department of State from the US side. So any cases which get held up get flagged to this meeting and they get resolved. So largely, today nothing is actually held up because the ITAR clearances are not coming, to be honest. So they may take some time, but and of course a better, faster mechanism for clearances would be helpful. But that is one part of it. Second, both countries have in principle the leaders have stated that they'll try to make the ITAR and other regulatory mechanisms faster. So we should see some movement into this. Thirdly, when you're talking of the word licenses, sir, so licenses are of two types. One is an industrial license which a manufacturing company in India requires to take. So that is purely an Indian process. It is applied through DPIIT. It goes through some other agencies, and in terms of defense, it comes to the MOD. And last year, the Ministry of Defense issued over 400 plus industrial licenses. So there is a little bit of a process here. But if you see year by year, the number of industrial licenses for the defense are increasing. There's a process, especially DPIIT's website is quite helpful, and they update it in real time, 24 to 48 hours, and it's possible to navigate it. But the challenge does remain that some of the smaller companies, they don't have visibility, they don't have teams, they don't have a complete team which can follow up, etc., because they are a small team. So that challenge, I'm aware it runs. Maybe when they're stuck, they can go through Startup India. They sometimes help these, or maybe even request IDEX to step in and put in a word to the DDP to expedite. I stop here.
Shrinder, I mean, just my question was the same thing, because it is being processed on a website which is taking time for clearances. But yes, the procedure you very clarified. Maybe we need a little discussion on this with the government people to clarify these things. So we are running short of time. Let me take on the question and answers now. Which have come. Sandeep. Uh, he says that we hosted Indus at Stanford last year and have not gained any traction. What is it that we are missing, and how can Azista, he's from Azista, leverage our US entity to contribute in the Indo-Pacific relationship, and how can we help primes in US to penetrate Indian market, and how can the US primes help us penetrate US market? Probably, Kerry, I think you would be the right person to answer, though you covered it. Very shortly, you can answer this.
Yeah, I mean, I think on both sides, for US companies, we would love to meet with you directly and understand specifically what your product and service is, to see how we might be able to help you engage in the Indian market. And if that's just market intelligence or information, we have a team of people that work in the aerospace and defense sector, local experts that work for us. And they're always happy to talk with companies individually and kind of talk about their broader plan for the Indian market. And then, as Colonel Arya was saying earlier about market entry strategies, we do see American companies selling direct commercial sale to the government of India. They're much smaller procurements. They're not the big things that you think of that we see in the news. But all of those big vendors have tier one, tier two, tier three supply chain. And so we're also positioned to have a conversation on where we can connect you within those supply chains. And so wherever, because there's a couple of questions on this kernel thing, I just want to cover all of them at once if that's okay. But
Yeah.
so, for individual companies, do please reach out to me. I'll share with Joey too some additional contact information for the wider team. We meet with companies individually, understand what their plans are, what they've been trying to do in the market, and then we position you with the tools and the resources that we have to help you tackle that issue and get traction in the market. And so if that's finding agent, partner, distributor, I know Colonel Aria mentioned that a lot of companies do JVs. That isn't necessarily a concept that most of our American companies follow. That's more of an Indian kind of method on doing business. And so what we see a lot more, especially in the deep tech on startups, is some sort of sales agent representative relationship for a company that might have an accessory product or service or a related product or service that wouldn't be your competitor, but they would be able to sell your product or help you make inroads within the government as a complementary product. And so we're well positioned as the US commercial service to actually find you those people here on the ground in India. And so do reach out to us because we want to help you do business here and do it better, faster.
Thank you, Carrie. I think that answers. Someone has probably written, will you please share Carrie's presentation to attendees? Yes, she's already agreed to that. I think it will be shared with IDEX and DIU. You can reach out on the mail of Chitra or Aryan and get it. Where can we access the country's commercial guide? I think Carrie has put in a couple of linkages on the chat box. Probably they are there.
It's in my slides, Colonel Singh. So there's a direct link to the India Country Commercial Guide. So everybody will get the link to that. And then these that I posted were related to BIR and ITAR. So Joey, when you guys send it out, if you could send these links to the training for the different export controls, I think that would be helpful for people as well.
I have not understood Naga's question. Is there a flip side for India like this? But let me take on Jeff Odlum's question. His question is, how do we see India, Indus and Indus innovation priorities evolving in the coming year? And are there specific program opportunities you are aware of, like the joint challenges, accelerator programs, Indus Works, Access, Launchpad programs, etc., that the Indian companies can benefit from to help them enter the US market and partner with the US program? Uh, I mean, this is a question on the index. Ganalaria and Kerry, could you like to take it on? But I'm sure there is a lot coming. This is one of the most successful programs in jointly between DIU and IDEX, the Index. So they are thinking of launching not only a couple of challenges, but many more. Also, kindly also want to diversify in other fields like the AI, quantum, cyber, and other critical technologies. And in times to come, this will be the you can see this is one of the program which is being driven by both the countries in all earnest. Anything that you people want to add, Arya and Carrie? You are muted,
Carrie,
Kanarya.
Carrie, over to you. First.
I was actually going to suggest maybe Joey answer that question. I know he's not a panelist, but I think he would probably have better insight into the broader plans for Indus X.
Yeah,
I
Joey,
do
would you like
know,
to answer here?
Yeah, we are working on some additional joint challenges across IndusX, and those programs are still being worked, so we don't have a public announcement for any of that yet. We're looking at a IndusX summit later this fall as something that we'll make these announcements of what the new programming and opportunities are. We're hearing the demand for more accelerator programs for access to IndusWorks and bigger challenges, and that's what we're working on right now.
So
In the
last
meantime, right, we're
question,
going to continue doing these Gurukul Education Series
yeah,
to
great.
help people learn what opportunities exist and where.
and Joey, would it be fair to say that we're going to see more on UAS given the announcement of Asia from the joint statement from February?
Yes, I think that's definitely
Yeah.
where we're leaning towards. Nothing has been finalized yet.
Yeah.
I think that the last question which I'll take is on by Sean Toolan, that if you are a US startup trying to do business with Indian military, who should we reach out in order to expedite the ITAR process? Carrie, I think you can answer this question.
Yeah, I'm not a person. I'm not gonna be able to expedite the ITAR process, but if you have an ITAR, if you've already applied for the license, that's the first thing. If you haven't even applied for the license, of course, that's got to be applied for. But I think we'd be happy to, as the U.S. Commercial Service, have a conversation with you, and understand what the technology is and what you're trying to do, to see what assistance might be able to be provided by us or our colleagues in ODC.
Well, I think we've overshot time, and it's been a great interaction with Kanlaria and Kerry and all the participants. There are certain participants who are writing that we've been trying to get in touch with the ODC in Delhi, and we are not able to probably get headway in this thing. I think they can reach out to the Joey and Kerry or through mail, and I think there will be some way that can be found out for you to engage in this technology collaboration. So, well, all that remains for me is to thank Kanlaria, Carrie, and all our viewers today who've joined us for this very informative topic on advancing technology trade between India and US. And we hope IDEX and DIU continue with this great Gurukul series of education. It has been an education for me. Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening and a good day to people there in US. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. We really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
everyone.
There will be a survey at the end. If you can fill that out when you leave, we would appreciate getting any feedback.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you so much, everyone, for joining in. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Carrie.
Arya sir. Thank you,
Aria.
Singh sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a great
Chitra.
evening.
Thank you, Joey.
Take care, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.